Hi, this is Michelle Hughes again from Ageless and Timeless. And today I have a very special guest. She's a lady that I've known for many years. And actually, we met in Hawaii through a mutual friend. And she, like me, has journeyed through many entrepreneurial experiences and also through a spiritual journey. She's probably the goddess of happiness, in my opinion. And her name is Debbie Gisonni. She is currently the general manager for Canyon Ranch Wellness Retreat that is opening in Woodside, California. Formerly, she was with the Stillheart Institute, and there she worked for our mutual friend, Joan Porter, who is rather a doyenne in Hawaii. And we both have a lot of respect for Joan Porter and all that she's accomplished in her life and her spiritual journey. So, Debbie, welcome to Ageless and Timeless.
Thank you, Michelle. Glad to be here.
Well, I know how busy you are, and I know you're taking time out from that busy schedule. So I'm going to be very precise today, Debbie, because there's a lot of questions I have for you. So
Good.
the first one is, let's talk about the goddess of happiness. So what is it about you that has made you so attuned to finding that happiness and that bliss in life?
Right. Well, the Goddess of Happiness is actually the name of one of my books. And it's a self-help book or self-development book that can be read in any order with lots of different topics like tolerance and finding kindness in life and finding inner balance in everyday busy life that we all have here in our work schedules and being mothers and employees and sisters and brothers, etc. Um, it kind of came about because my first book was about a period of time where I had lost a series of family members in a very short period of time. And I was writing about death and dying and overcoming that and illness and overcoming grief. And I was being called in for interviews and talks. And all of a sudden, I kept seeing next to my name, the death and dying expert. And I said,
Oh,
wow, I don't want to be I want to be the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So I started writing this little column called Be Happy. And that ended up becoming the book, The Goddess of Happiness. And then the moniker came after that. But I really do feel that no matter what we're going through in life, what's going on around us, it really is all external. And there's always a place inside of us to find true happiness and true inner peace.
so what are the qualities that a person needs to be able to have that positive mental attitude? What is the guidance that you give to people so that they can tap into that that inner strength?
Right, right. Well, I think one of the most important things for being happy is to give up all the control we think we have in life. You know, we can control our thoughts and we can control our actions and we can control our reactions to things. But somewhere along the line, we really think we're in control of life and we're not. Life just sort of happens. It interrupts us moment by moment with things going on, with people, with places, with tragedy, with ecstatic things, the ups and downs. And if we can just accept and embrace everything that comes our way and say even the bad is good, then we can actually be a lot happier and know that, you know, there's a bigger plan here and we can't always be in control of it. So going with the flow is extremely important for people that want to be happy.
So when you face adversity, and we always like to say that in the Chinese philosophy, opportunity and adversity are synonyms. So how do you create from adversity an opportunity? What's your secret to doing that?
Right. Well, so I spoke a little bit about these tragedies I went through. While I was in the corporate market, in the high tech market, I actually lost four people in my family in 4 years.
Oh,
My younger sister, who was 23, committed suicide. My mother, who was sick for a very long time, had a brain tumor. I lost an aunt that I lived with in California through breast cancer. And then my father died of multiple myeloma, and it all happened within a 4 year period of time.
oh.
Now, I would say those are pretty adverse conditions, especially when you are, you know, juggling a corporate career, and I was pretty high level in that career. And I did do a lot of compartmentalizing, I will say, to kind of get through my day on a daily basis. But when push comes to shove, there's a lot of coping mechanisms I think that we have innately within us, and sometimes we are afraid to use those. For example, finding humor in situations, not in the bigger situation, not in the tragedy, not in the adversity, but I really think that humor is a place where we can let loose, where it's as much an emotional release as crying. And given a choice, of course, wouldn't you rather laugh than cry? And there were times during that very tragic time in my family's history where we were able to really laugh at the little things that were happening. I'll give you an example of that. So my mother, who was sick for 10 years, pretty much, requiring 24/7 care on a regular basis. She was in hospitals a lot. She had a tracheotomy tube, so she couldn't talk very well. And she would end up in the hospitals, and she'd have pneumonia all the time because she couldn't swallow. There were like so many complications I can't even get into. And at one point, when she was on a ventilator in the hospital, which, if you've ever known anybody on a ventilator, you really can't speak, right? And the nurses, they were trying to be really helpful, and she really wanted to communicate. She was a very fiery Italian woman. And the nurses said, "Oh, why don't you give your mother this alphabet board, and she can spell out the words, point to the letters on this alphabet board." And here she is, she's fighting for life, right? And the nurses don't know. First of all, English was a second language to her. She came here from Italy when she was like in her mid-teens, and she never really learned to speak or write English very, very well, let alone, write it, right? And here we are trying to make sense of her spelling out words on this alphabet board. And it turned out to be this like really, really funny game we would play. And you can see from her eyes and her mouth that she was smiling with us.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the larger situation was so, so tragic, we were able to find like just some moments of lightness in that. And laughter just is such a healing device for anything.
Mm-hmm. Laughter is the best medicine, as they say, right?
Yes, it is. It
Right.
is. It also helps boost the immune system too. So it's good for wellness too.
Did you use music at all? As many people say that that is a healing agent for sadness.
Yes. In fact, I use music every day in my life. I think music is like, it's one of the things for me that, first of all, growing up, there was always music on in my household. My mother either always had the radio on, or my father was singing Italian opera or something like that. So music was a big part of our growing up experience. And as I got out on my own, I felt that music to me, well, first of all, I love to dance. So that's important too. Sometimes I just crazy dance and put music on just to like kind of, balance out the day. But to me, when you put music on, it completely infuses your body and can change your mood in a positive
Hmm.
way. It's
So how
so
have
healing.
Debbie, how has your support system helped you during those times of challenge and adversity and tragedy?
Well, thankfully, I have been with my husband for over 40 years now, and I've known him that long. And it is really helpful and useful to have like kind of the rock of Gibraltar, somebody that's like your rock that you can always
Hmm.
turn to no matter how bad you feel, no matter how much you want to cry, that will always be there. And I think that that's extremely important. It's also important to have that support system amongst your friends and family. I think a lot of time when people are going through challenging times, they want to keep it to themselves because they feel like they're burdening other people,
Hmm.
right? They don't want to, burden people with their problems or whatever. They don't want to feel vulnerable or weak or whatnot. And I'm sort of the opposite. I say, tell everybody, that you trust, that you feel that can help you about what you're going through, because people really do innately want to help you. And just getting it off your chest, just talking about it or writing about it actually helps heal it. It helps unburden you just by doing that one simple thing. So yeah, support system is extremely important, extremely important.
So going to the positive side of the ledger, where have you felt you have been at your greatest moments in life? Where has your epiphany in, let's say, in life come from?
Okay, I've had a lot of epiphanies or aha moments. The one that comes to mind is I was working in the corporate market for about 15 years in high tech in the publishing arena. I was a publisher. And, from the outside, it looked like I had it all. I had this fantastic job, I had a great salary, stock options, all of that. But underneath it all, I was going through, on the sidelines, basically, or the backdrop, I was going through all these family tragedies, and something just wasn't quite right. And I knew it, my spirit knew it. And each and every day, I felt like I was getting farther and farther away from who I really was and what was the meaning of life and why was I here. And so basically, I got to a point where I just said, you know what? I need to get off this treadmill, the corporate treadmill. I need to get off and I need to find myself and I need to go on my own journey and figure out what's going to be important for me in the next stage of my life and what's going to give my life meaning. Because at that point, that particular career wasn't doing it for me. I had a wonderful career for 15 years, but I knew that there was something more. So I just left. I mean, I gave them a month's notice and I said, I'm I'm leaving. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's next for me, but I know that I cannot be here any longer. And that was a huge step and a huge aha moment for my life. And believe me, everybody, my friends, my family, they all thought I was crazy
Mm-hmm.
to do that without a plan. But for some reason, I knew that in my heart and soul, it was the right thing to do. And that actually changed the trajectory of my life, of my spiritual journey, of my career path, everything. It
Mm-hmm.
changed everything.
So you had that leap of faith, but
Yeah.
we a lot of people that we've interviewed on our show have had the exact same experience, and what it is, I guess, is just a belief that comes deep from within that
Hmm.
basically dictates what your heart is saying versus your head,
Right.
and listening to your heart. And you were very brave to do that. So what happened next, and how did that awareness become a positive reality?
Right. And you did ask me, how did you turn adversity into something positive? And this actually,
Opportunity,
uh,
right?
yeah, this actually leads right into that. So I had gone through these family tragedies. I knew that I needed to do something else with my life. I didn't have a plan. So when I left my job, and I was in my mid 30s at the time. And when I left, well, the first thing I did was I planned a barbecue for 80 of my closest friends, and I did all the cooking because I think I felt like I had to like fill up my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing I did, like the first week. But after that settled, then I I thought I was going to write an Italian cookbook. That was my plan. I said, I'm going to do something fun, something I've always wanted to do in my life. But that book never materialized. What ended up materializing is my first book called Beat as Well. That book is about the period of time I went through during these tragedies, how I got through it, and coping skills for other people to get through similar grief, loss, whatever that is, whether it's loss, real loss or loss of a job or loss of a family member or loss of abundance, whatever that was in their life, to kind of coping, to try to get through and cope through that. So I felt like even though I went through this horrible time in my life, it taught me a lot of lessons. And the subtitle on that book is Real Life Lessons About Life, Death, and Moving On. And I felt like I could bring those lessons to other people so that they could have a more positive experience when they're going through adversity. So that was how I turned, really was a bunch of sour lemons into something very positive. And I will say that, each time someone reads that book and says to me, oh my God, it just, fell off the shelf, or someone gave it to me and now I understand how important it was and how much it helped them. Like that makes me feel really satisfied and that gives meaning to my life. So that whole experience, even though it was horrible,
Mm-hmm.
it actually changed my life for the better. And it brought me into a career of health and wellness and helping people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you talk about these things because everyone faces adversity at some point, and the coping mechanisms are all going to vary per the person. It sounds to
Right.
me like your journey brought you to the spiritual path, and I think that's something that a lot of people need to understand. So, how do you describe the spiritual path as it relates to your life, and how would you guide others to
Right.
understand what it means to live life spiritually?
Right, right. Well, I have to give you a little background of my upbringing. So I was brought up in a very Catholic Italian immigrant household in New York. And so the only spirituality I really had in my life was from the Catholic religion, which never really sort of sat well with me in terms of the doctrine and the rites and the dogma of it.
Mm.
And as I became an adult, I really didn't practice or practice the religion in any way, shape, or form. When I left my corporate job, I went on what I would consider my own personal spiritual journey. I just started reading and going to workshops and trying to learn everything I could about spirituality and different religions of the world and how to meditate. I went on a journey and I got my certification in hypnotherapy. I went and learned a lot about food and nutrition and how that affects your body and your spirit and positivity. And then I started writing these books. And in writing the books, it was, not only were they a cathartic experience for me, but the goddess of happiness throughout that journey, I learned a lot about the feminine architect and spirituality and where that came from. And the yin and the yang and being in receptive mode. And there were so many things that came my way because I was ready for them. And I think that things do come your way when you are ready for them. And for me, it gave me such a more expansive view of what spirituality meant and how to live a spiritual life. And
Mm.
to me, what that means is, to fill your life with love and come from a come from a period come from a point of love no matter what you're doing, and to love and to know that we're all connected, that we're all energy, and that there's no difference between you and me. It doesn't matter what shell we decided to come in with, color of our hair or skin or preferences, whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're all connected. And when you get to that point, life seems so much more brighter and so much more loving. And I think that you attract what you want to bring into your life. So when you
Mm.
give love out, you attract love in. I have this little post-it on my computer at work and at home that says, what would love do? Right. And to
Mm.
me, that's what living a spiritual life is about. What would
Mm-hmm.
love do?
Mm. That's beautiful, Debbie. So you've had now what, 4 books, right? You said. So what?
3 books.
Oh, 3 books. I'm sorry. So tell
Yeah.
us how each one has defined you and what your growth has been through writing those books. As you say that the first one was your catharsis, right, during the
Yeah.
tragedy. But why don't you go through the 3 books so we understand
Sure.
how you've evolved through your writing as an author?
Right, right. And writing, by the way, people say, wow, it's such a big accomplishment to write a book. And I say, everyone is a writer, right? Even if you're not writing a book to be published, writing is such a cathartic exercise
Mm.
because it stops that monkey mind process in your brain and puts the thoughts on paper where you can actually look at them from more of a witness point of view rather than try to internalize everything that's happening to you. So writing, I'm a big proponent of writing. For me, what's so funny about my writing is A, I never thought I'd write any books. B, when I wanted to write a book, I really only wanted to write an Italian cookbook. And C, none of those 3 books were planned, and I'll get to that in a second. I think that information is brought to us. And for me, a lot of that information comes during my sleep time. So the Vita's Will book, which was my first book, was something that I think Spirit thought I needed because I needed to get through that, and I knew that I could help other people. And chapter names and because I wrote the book way after the whole experience happened. It was an experience that took place over a 10-year period of time,
Mm.
And I wrote it more than 10 years after. And you thought, well, how could I even remember some of those details? All those details sort of kept flooding back into me, during dream state or as I was writing. It was almost like I was on automatic pilot and the
Mm.
book was just given to me. And I think we all think we're all so smart and whatever, but I do think that most ideas are given to us from a higher source.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you think of the best inventions and people say, oh, I just had this thought. Well, where did the thought came from? Well, it came from the universe. It came from the higher source and it was meant to come into your sphere, right? So Venus Will was the first book that I wrote, and that was a memoir. And what you're going to find from this pattern is, a lot of people that are writers, prolific writers, they kind of stick with one genre. Well, I guess that wasn't my plan, because first I wrote a memoir, then I wrote a self-development book called The Goddess of Happiness, which is a book that can be read in any order and has really quick little chapters with affirmations and meditations and space for writing in it. So it was more like a very self-development, kind of cute, fun book with a little quiz in the front. So it was totally different than the first book. And then the third book, my gosh, I would have never thought I was going to write a novel. The third book is actually a novel, and that came to me in dream state. It was the funniest thing. I wasn't actually writing anything or thinking I was going to write another book. And what happened was I woke up one morning at 4 a.m. and I'm like writing. I always keep a notepad. Ever since I started writing, I always keep a notepad by my desk, by my nightstand. And I started writing like crazy. And this whole story, like this plot line emerged out of this dream I had. And I turned on the light, and like about an hour later, my husband goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, I think I just got downloaded a whole plot for a book. And he said, "Okay, good." Turned off the light, went back to bed, and I just kept writing. And then for about 2 months, every single night, I'd go to bed and I'd wake up at 4, and I'd have names of characters, I'd have storylines, I'd have scenes. I had like the story just kept merging, and I wasn't doing anything but putting these little note pieces that I was collecting into an envelope. I didn't know what this was about, and I started talking to some friends about this information that was being downloaded to me, and my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to write that book. It sounds fantastic." And so I eventually did write the book after I felt like all the downloads were done, and then I had like all these little pieces of paper, in an envelope that was about this big. And I just started writing the book because the plot was already planned, and that's how Note to Self Love came about.
So could that be a screenplay?
Yeah, it's funny because everybody that reads the book says, "Oh, this would make a great movie." I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's set in New York, where I'm from. I live in California now, and it's about an actress or a wannabe actress, theater actress, who's really working in an Italian restaurant as a waitress. Typical story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she gets to a point where she just reaches her limit. She reaches her limit with relationships. She's given up on her dreams, and she's given up on life, and she decides to end it. But that ending gets interrupted by a very mysterious stranger on the street, and she goes into a coma. And while she's in a coma, she can hear and see everything going on around her, which is quite comical. But she also gets introduced to a spirit guide, and the
Mm.
spirit guide is this beautiful, very very sassy woman who tries to knock some sense into the main character, and she takes her on this journey. And throughout the book, she learns a little bit about the mystery of her own past life and her relationship with her father, the mystery of why the stranger keeps coming to visit her and his backstory. And it's a story of a woman who goes from a point of, I'd say, near self-destruction to self-empowerment and self-love, and how important self-love is for all of us. So it's a little bit funny and it's a little bit poignant at the same time. And I think if it were a screenplay, it would be something like, While You Were Sleeping meets It's a Wonderful Life. It's kind of got elements of both of those, but it
Mm-hmm.
would be kind of a fun rom com. And I do want to say that the theme of suicide is very, very near and dear to me, and it's a
Because
very
of your
serious
sister.
subject. Yeah, it's a very
Hmm.
serious subject to
Right.
speak about, and I think that this book was channeled to me and given to me as a way to speak about that subject and speak about um, the fact that people really, so many women, for instance, they all feel not good enough, and we all get to that place and we feel like, is it really all worth it? But
Hmm.
to bring that into a more colorful, fun story and tell the same messages that could have been told in a much more serious, self-help book, but tell it in a way that people actually get the messages, but in an entertaining
But
story.
they can relate to, and
Yeah,
it's storytelling, right? So,
yeah.
is there anything autobiographical in that novel?
It's not autobiographical, although I will say, because it's my first attempt at writing a novel, and I was so used to writing like true stories where everything I said was exactly on point and true to the character and whatnot. When you are writing a novel, you have this creative license to create characters out of pieces of other characters that you know in life. So I will say that the main character, Morgan Miller, probably is a conglomerate of a lot of different people that I know in New York. She has this very, very cynical wit. If
Mm.
you've ever like been around New Yorkers, you
Mm.
kind of see that. And I think she has a little bit of my older sister in that, because my older sister is very funny and she's very cynical at the same time and self-deprecating, right?
Hmm.
And she also has this love of Italian. She's not Italian, but she has this love of Italian food and culture.
Hmm.
And that's what I grew up in. So it is part of, what I know. I think, you do write. You always write about things you know.
Hmm.
She's in a hospital. A lot of the drama takes place in a hospital setting. And my mother was in a hospital for years and years. So
Hmm.
I understand, hospitals are little soap operas.
Right.
By themselves. I mean,
Right.
that's why a lot of the soap operas, right, take place around a hospital
That's
and near a
right.
hospital and all that. They have all little very interesting stories going on between the nurses and the doctors and the patients. There's an interesting dynamic there. So I was very familiar with that. And of course, it's set in New York City, which is where I grew up. And so I that kind of speaks to my heart as well. And the stranger that saves her is an Italian businessman, and he comes from an Italian family, and so that again, there's a little bit of my own background in there as well.
Mm. So, Debbie, one of the things that people always say about we business women who are focused on our development careers, contributions, that we're also serious. we what do you do? What do you do for fun and for relief?
I I try never to take myself too seriously, and I think that's a huge asset and coping mechanism for anybody in the world. I make sure that I feed my creative spirit, which is my fun side, all the time. First of all, writing for me is very creative and that's fun, and so I've spent a lot of time doing that. I make sure I have music in my life. We spoke about that. Sometimes I just put music on while I'm cooking and dance around, and that just brings me into another whole place. I do a lot of physical activities that are fun for me, like biking and whatnot. I have a 13-foot trampoline in my backyard, and I
Mm.
put music on and jump around there. And I do try to incorporate like something fun in my life every day. I think it's so extremely important because it's really what our spirit craves. It's what we live for. And it's
Hmm.
that inner child that we really forgot about, years ago. We think, okay, now that we're serious in business, we have to act a certain way. We have to look a certain way. We have to, you know, do certain things. And I will tell you, when I'm walking around my neighborhood, I go on the swing set with all the other kids in the neighborhood. And I'm in my 50s. And I swing because that's something that I remember as a child that brought me joy. And I try to continue doing
Hmm. So what most surprises people about you?
that. What most surprises them?
Mm.
Hmm. Well, when I was in the corporate market, what most surprised, because I was, high executive in the corporate market, what most surprised my colleagues then was that I could actually, cook and entertain, and that I knew how to cook and entertain. I think that was surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my spiritual friends feel very surprised with the fact that I can actually run multi-million dollar businesses, because a lot of people don't have that kind of right brain, left brain, going all the
Right.
time.
Right.
And I hope that I could surprise people on a daily basis with something, new and fun and exciting, and also really surprise myself as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm trying to think if there's anything else that surprises people. Most people that know me, most people know that I'm sort of like, I kind of consider myself a Renaissance person, where I'm involved and I have a lot of different interests, from fitness to wellness to spirituality to business to organization. So most people that know me really aren't surprised about that, but people
Mm-hmm.
that just meet me might be.
So you have a big challenge in front of you, and I know that it's evolving, and we can talk about that on another podcast. Only to say, though, however, to address that for a moment, is are you facing any challenges right now that you've never faced before?
Hmm. Well, this is ageless and timeless, right?
Mm.
So I think that as we mature and age, especially as women, I think there are daily challenges we face. Like right now, I'm looking in a camera, and I'm not exactly that clear. I could probably do this and be a little clearer. So here are my reading glasses, everyone. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to the ophthalmologist and asking about lens replacement. Like, just because I'm like, God, I'm so tired of wearing glasses.
Right. So, the
And so,
aging process in the physical sense, it has to be
yeah,
challenged on the mental side. That's what ageless and timeless is really about, is that
right,
we don't allow ourselves to get drawn into the negativity of what we might see that morning in the mirror, but particularly on the magnifying mirror. So,
oh my gosh, seriously, the magnifying mirror is the worst. Oh my
that
gosh,
moment
and
of
I have
truth.
to use a magnifying mirror to get my makeup on in the morning, which I've never had to do before.
So you don't have children, do you?
No, we have, my husband and I opted for the four-legged variety. So
Yeah.
we've always had dogs, and we've always had huskies, and we've had well, this is the only time I actually only have one husky, and in fact he's lying down here with me
Oh,
now. He
yeah.
may he may decide to get up and howl. We've always had multiple, like three and two huskies at a time. We just lost one in March, and we felt like, we've had really these wonderful careers, and it was a real conscious decision on our part, not to have children, actually.
It's so funny because I was reading an article the other day about a woman who's 40, just turning 45, and she said, "Thank God I'm not going to get asked anymore why I didn't have children."
Yes.
And it's like a burden. I mean, you and I share that, and both of us were very career directed, and both have very supportive husbands, and
Right.
unfortunately, my husband did pass away, and you're able to still have that support
Hmm.
system, which I totally, admire and endorse, that you've been together for
Yeah.
40 years. However, I was going to tell you this little story that might amuse you about the International Women's Forum. I think that I've
Oh
been
yeah,
a,
I know the group well. Yeah.
right, because we actually came to the Stillheart Institute when you were
Right. Right.
right, and
Right.
we had a retreat there. Well, anyway, it's the top ranking women throughout the world, and one of the best organizations, because you network with women that you'd never meet from all walks of life. So we're at a retreat in Coto de Caza many years ago, and these women let their hair down, just like I guess the
Yeah.
Bohemian Club guys do on that the other side. But anyway, so they're sitting around the pool, and there's like 20 of us in a circle, and we're all talking, and they're all talking. I'm totally quiet because they're all talking about their children. And of course, I have nothing to say because I don't have, I chose like you not
Right.
to have children. Well, so finally there was this pause, and the one woman turns to me and she says, "So what do you do for aggravation?" I'll never forget that. But it's interesting. You make choices in life, and
Yeah.
those choices, it's unfortunate in our society. You do have to kind of justify why is it that I even asked you that question.
Right.
It's
Well,
just something that people put in their I don't know, social mores or whatever, that it is important uh,
yeah.
to either challenge that or try to understand it. Depends on who's asking.
Yeah, I
But
think it's changing too. I think 20 years ago, yeah, it was a little bit different than now. I think it's a little bit more accepted to make that choice consciously.
yeah,
And yeah, my funny story is when people say, "Wow, you guys," when they look at my husband and they're like, "You guys never change. You look so young.
yeah,
What's your secret?" And
right.
I always say, "No children."
Right, right. Same idea. But this woman that said that about being 45 and not being asked anymore. She said, I was all through my life early on I was being asked, what am I going to do when I get older and I don't have anyone to take care of me? And I
I
think
know.
there is that sense that, that children play a big role in the golden years, so to speak. But
Yeah.
fortunately, in your case, you and your husband have that support group built in,
Right.
and lots of friends, right? Lots of
Yeah,
friends.
and I don't want to, I don't like to mentally go down that road, what if and whatnot. I think that we need to trust and
Yeah,
trust that we will always be taken care of, and
right,
things will just work out exactly the way they're supposed to work out, children
right,
or not, right?
right. So, if you were going to list three dreams that you have right now in your life, just starting right from this moment while we're talking extemporaneously, what are those three dreams that you would love to fulfill?
Wow, that's a really loaded question, Michelle.
Well,
We
Debbie, when we talk, we always talk loaded questions, right?
Yeah, it's like you're. It's almost like you're. I just watched the movie a couple months ago that came out with Aladdin as a movie, right? And it's reminding me of that. Like, what are your three wishes?
Right,
Rub the lamp.
right.
Your three wishes. Um, well, I kind of look at it maybe from the macro to the micro, right? And the micro would be, myself, and then the macro would be the world. Because when
Mm-hmm.
I go into meditation and all, I always try to send love to the world and peace to the world,
Mm.
and visualize a world where there is no more horrible things that we hear about every day. The
Mm.
poverty, the sexual slavery,
Right.
the
The wars.
the equity, the wars, the
Yeah.
killing, the prejudice, just all of that stuff that exists on a lower consciousness level.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like my only part, I can do my part in my own little life, but I always try to, I don't know how to really put this, but in meditation, I try to wish for that to evolve and change, and for consciousness to be
Mm.
brought up. Because when we bring our own consciousness, or we help bring others' consciousness up, I mean, it helps everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the world is evolving, and it always will. And we want to make sure that we're not on a path of destruction, right?
Mm.
So that's like the big wish, right?
That's the macro.
And even though it sounds like, oh, that's kind of beyond me, and what does it have to do with me? Because I really do believe we are all connected, we are all energy, we are all eternal, and what we sow, we reap. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really important to me.
Mm.
For myself in my own life, I always wish for health, abundance, happiness, and good relationships. But I also feel like I'm always wishing for, just to be in the state of love as much as I can. I fall in and out of it. I'm human just like everyone else.
Mm.
And you have to give yourself a little break here and there. But my wish is to kind of be more in it than out of it. Let's put it that way at
Mm-hmm.
all times. And believe me, some days I'm out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I say to myself, where was the love today?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I would like to walk that path a little bit more consistently.
Mm-hmm. So that's two. What's number three?
Oh gosh, I've only got two.
Well, you had the macro and then you had the micro.
Yeah.
And then there's got to be one more. I think maybe, address what you're facing right now. You probably are wanting to build this amazing health and wellness because
Yeah, yeah. So I just stepped into this new role as general manager here at, well, not here, right now I'm in my home in Woodside, the Wellness Center. And for me, I think the challenge I'm facing, because for the last several years I've been doing mainly contract work and I've been able to have a really good balance in my life.
Mm,
So for me, the challenge personally is to maintain my integrity, my balance, as well as running and being in kind of a startup mode, which takes a lot of time.
mm-hmm,
And I'm finding I'm working many, many, many hours and weekends and nights and whatnot, and trying to remember each and every day to take some time for myself for self care.
mm, mm,
And that's a huge challenge right now
mm.
because I am sort of a type A personality, workaholic, and I could really get immersed in, the whole work thing as I did in corporate. And so my big lesson right now for me to learn is how to do it both and do it well.
Do you think there's any guidance that we could give to other women versus we have our audience is both men and women.
Uh-huh.
However, women who are in the world that we're in, do we have special challenges in your opinion?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't
another
mean.
loaded question.
Yeah, and what?
Um,
So, okay, what do you think those challenges are that women face versus the other gender?
right. Well, women. Well, let me look at two kind of groups. So, women in the workforce. If we look at women in the workforce first of all, I mean, I don't have to go through statistics about pay inequity, about the Me Too movement, about sexual harassment, things like that. I mean, there's those are all the normal things that we hear about in the daily news and whatnot. And I don't think that those are going away anytime soon. I think that we're becoming more aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that's a challenge. I think women in the workforce also particularly have have issues and have challenges with asking for what they're worth
Yeah.
and improving their worth. I think that this is a big area for women in the workforce, um, putting themselves, like stepping in and putting themselves in the mix
Mm-hmm.
and asking for raises, asking for promotions. I actually never had a problem with that for some
Right.
reason,
Nor did I,
but I
but
but I
maybe
found
because we're entrepreneurs, we didn't have to ask someone else. Well,
yeah, I don't
we both had corporate experience, but that was some time back. But I think as you evolve and you have more
yeah,
confidence, self confidence, and
right,
then you control your own destiny. Destiny. So we
yeah.
as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and you have to think you're worth it too. So I think that that's important, and also be willing to walk away, right, when
Uh huh.
things are not, when the situation is
Yeah.
not good for you.
Debbie,
And
one of our podcasts we talked about learning to say no.
oh
So
yeah,
I think that's
well
a big one.
that's big for women in working women, stay at home mothers. I think that that's a huge area for women is
Mm-hmm.
learning to say no because
Mm-hmm.
we are nurturers by nature, I say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to take care of people. We want to help people. We're very communicative. We're very giving. We're very loving just by the nature of the feminine kind of archetype, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that, or the challenge, becomes when you give and give and give and give, and that means not saying no, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing left to give to yourself at the end of the day, at
Right.
the end of the week, and that is not a good situation to
Right.
be in for self care, for stress levels, for wellness, for ageless and timeless, any of that, because you have to be able to give back to yourself, and you have to believe that you're worth it, right?
Right. Well, I remember when we talked earlier, you had said that you wanted to offer something special to our viewers, the ageless and timeless viewers who are supporting you. So could you talk about that for a moment before we run out of
Sure,
time here?
sure, absolutely. So on my website, which is just my name.com, debbiegisonni.com, you'll probably have that link on your information as well. I do give out a free book every month for to a subscriber, so you can just see it's just the website's very simple. It's just a page. It has an article on there on how to how to be happy and successful in life and work. So it's actually got some good information on there. And at the bottom, you can just join the list, and I pick a winner every month. But you know what? Since okay, we're on the end of the month now, so I will say that this month why don't I just pick five winners, and you get a free book. And usually I give Note to Self Love, but if you prefer Goddess of Happiness, you can send me a message directly through the website, and I can give you a different one.
Well, it may well be September anyway, because today being the 29th of August, and
Oh,
you'll,
right, right. So let's do it for September.
if,
Sure.
if
Well, I'll, I get noticed. I get notices when people sign up, so I know that I can tell if they are associated with
with
this
ageless.
podcast by the timing. Yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
I will
the
make that
concept
available.
is they'll refer to when they contact you, they'll say that they saw
Yeah.
you on Ageless in
Yeah.
Time. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Well, Debbie, I wish you so much luck, and because we have so much commonality, I feel such an alignment with you,
Me
and
too.
although we don't talk all the time, it's funny about friendship, right? You can
Yeah.
reconnect
It
with
doesn't
somebody, and
matter.
it's like no time has gone by, but you feel like you're just back in the flow.
I feel
So
like we're talking on the ethereal. We're talking on another level.
right, I agree. I totally agree. Well, that speaks volumes for who you are, and of course, I love to magnetize that with you, because we are energy, all energy, and when yours is so positive. So thank you again for
Thank
joining us
you.
today, and I wish you all the luck in your new venture here, and we hope to hear some really good things about what's happening in Woodside.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, you take care, Debbie.
Thanks. Bye.
As you could tell, Debbie and I could talk for hours, and we have so many commonalities, and I love hearing her opinions and her values and her history. And so I invite you to read her books, at least go online and check them out. And I think you're going to be amazed at how much you will learn from a woman who has suffered and been resilient, shown her tenacity, and has become really at the top of her game in the health and wellness and spiritual world. So we're very grateful we had Debbie here today, and we hope that you will partake of some of her knowledge and experience. Thank you very much. This is Michelle Hughes at Ageless and Timeless signing off.